We began Unit 4, Regressions, with calculating regression equations. You do need a graphing calculator for this unit, and I have downloaded the WabbitMu calculator to help us out. Don't worry about not having a calculator at this time if you're at home without one. Please just take the notes and in class tomorrow, that way we can concentrate on the buttons and everything with the calculator. These are the calculator steps we will be using in class. I will be detailing these steps as we move along in the examples. These are on the first page of your photable. They are for you to look back to and use to help you. Let's look at example 1. The following is a list of the water pressures at various depths below the water surface. To begin, we need to go ahead and graph this scatter plot. To graph, we need an X and a Y axis. We need to name our graph. I'm using water pressure because that's what this says. It's water pressures at various depths. We need to name our X and Y coordinates. So our X is depth in meters, and our Y is pressure in atmospheres. And scaling. On the x-axis, I'm going to use 10 since these are all in 10 units. On the y-axis, these are not pretty. I do need an even scale, so I'm going to use 20. You could have used 5 or 10. And now we plot the points. When I go out 10 units, I will move up 15, which is about maybe right there. At 20 units, I am at about 31. At 30 units, we are at 44. At 40 units, I'm at 60.1, so right there at 60. At 50, we're at 74.8. And at 60, I'm at 88.1. So I have graphed my scatter plot. To calculate the regression equations, we need to enter the data into the calculator and get the scatter plot graphed. So we will go back to the first flap of the photable to do this. I'm going to bring in my WabbitMu calculator. The first thing we need to do is turn the calculator on, and let's clear the calculator out. To clear the calculator, we hit the second key, the plus key, the 7 key, right arrow, 1 and 2. Now we're going to press Stat. Make sure the edit is highlighted, and it is. It's in dark, and enter. List 1 is where I will put all my X values, and list 2 is where I will put all my Y values. I'm going to enter list 1 and list 2. So list 1, we have 10, enter, 20, enter, 30, enter, 40, enter, 50, enter, 60, enter. Right arrow to where you're underneath list 2, and now put in list 2. 15, enter, 31, enter, 44.5, enter, 60.1, enter, 74.8, enter, 88.1, enter. Make sure that all your variables line up and they are correct before we move on. Now we're going to press Y in the calculator, and if there's anything in Y equals, I want to hit clear and clear it out. The clear button is underneath the up and down arrow key. The Y equals button is the top left button on your calculator. We hit the second key. There's the arrow. Y equals, which is right above the second key. Have stat plot. I want to choose that, so I hit enter. Enter is the last button on the bottom right. Now see the plot blinking on? I want to press enter. So once I press enter, arrow over to see if it is highlighted, and it now is. Now we need to change our window in the calculator. So press the window button. Notice it is right here beside the y equals key. I am working in the first quadrant, so I need my x min to be 0. The x max will be slightly larger than the largest x value. My largest x value is 60, so I will use 70. The x scale we will use 0. The y min I will use 0 because we want to keep the graph in the first quadrant. The y max we will use a number slightly larger than the largest number, which is 88, so I may use 95. And the y scale we will put in 0. So now I have changed my windows, and this will allow my graph, when I press graph, to see the scatter plot. If I don't change the window, then I will only be able to see 10 units out on each of the axes from the origin. So this is what my graph should look like, and it does look really close to the one I drew. So now I am ready to calculate regression equations. Don't worry, it really is pretty easy. It is amazing to know what the calculators can do, and people use regressions to figure out and predict what future values of things will be, or what future sales will be. So this is pretty interesting, and it's pretty cool. What we see here on the flap now, right underneath our graph, are some calculator screens for each of these regressions. Is press the stat key. The stat key is right underneath the delete key. So on the second row, third key over is delete. The third row, third key from the left, is stat. So it's right by the arrow buttons. We will press the stat key right over to calc. Arrow down till we get to linear regression and hit enter. I think with your calculator all you have to do is hit enter twice and it should pop up. I am having to enter 5 times to calculate it. So far I only have this part of it. I do not have the r squared or the r. So if you do not see the r value, press the second key, which is again right here in the top second row, top left corner. Press the 0 key for catalog, and then press X to the inverse key for D. Arrow down till you get to diagnostic on. So diagnostic on is right here. I press the enter key, and I'm going to press it one more time to where it says done. Now go back to stat, right arrow to calc, and arrow down to for linear regression. I've got my list 1 in, I have list 2 in, I need to calculate it, and now I have what we see on the screen for the calculator is what I should have. Notice the y equals ax plus b. I'm going to place my a and b inside these values to make my equation. We want to go 3 decimal places out for this, and when it asks for r, I want to go 6 places out. Y equals, I'm only going 3 decimal places out, 1.464. I'm going to round if I need to, and I do not need to round this one. X plus 1. That is the first equation. This is a linear equation. Let's look at the power regression equation. Now I do not need to put in my list, but I'm going to go ahead and go over those steps with you. Press the stat key. Make sure the edit is highlighted. Press enter. Enter list 1, list 2. Go back to y equals. Make sure that your plot is highlighted. Make sure y1 is cleared out. Change your window if we need to, but I already have changed my window to match my table list. Now go to Stat, Cal, and arrow down till we get to Power Regression, which is right there at A. Hit Enter. And again, I want to calculate the power regression. And my table does match. I do have my R. And I'm going to put A and B where they are located in this equation. So y equals 1.569. Remember, if the third decimal place is what we're rounding to, and if the number to the right is bigger than 5, we round up. Notice this is times x, and it's raised to the what power? Well, whatever b is, and b is 986, and again we're going to round that to 0.987. And that's how you get the power regression. Let's try this again for the exponential regression. Okay, for the exponential regression, we're going to start all over again so that you are seeing the same steps. Start with Stat, make sure it's highlighted, and hit Enter. If I have something in here that I need to erase, I would arrow up and hit Clear and arrow back down. But I don't need to. These are the numbers that I need in List 1 and List 2. Press Y, make sure that your scatter plot button is highlighted. If not, then we would press the second key and Y equals to turn on the scat plot and enter. Press the window viewing key, and at this time we would change the windows to what I need, but this is the same information as before. The X max and Y max, you want to use something slightly larger than the largest values. And now we go to Stat, right arrow to Calc, arrow down now to Exponential Regression, and hit Enter. And I had to hit Enter a couple of times. Now this is my new equation, y equals a times b raised to the x. So I'm going to fill out that information exactly the way I see it. And my numbers do match what is showing here, so I am doing this correctly. So I have y equals 13.804 times 1.034 raised to the x. I put this little caret key here to remind myself of actually raising that up. That is not a big X, that is an exponential X. That's a little x. And that's how you do the exponential regression. Let's try this with the logarithmic. This is the natural log because it's ln and not log. And again, we do the same thing that we've done before. So again, I'm going to start all over just so that we are doing the same thing again and again. I go to Stat, make sure Edit is highlighted, hit Enter. Enter List 1, List 2. Go back to y equals, make sure the plot is on, make sure y1 is cleared out. Go to Window, change my window. Go to Stat again, right arrow to Calc, and this time go down to ln, the log. Hit Enter until you get the linear regression. And my linear regression should match, and I will be putting it into the form that is right here, a plus b times log of x. This is where I'm getting the form. You can see it on both the screen and on the calculator screen. So my equation is y equals negative 84.252 plus 40.158 log of x.